Minister. If I can return to public sector pay, and I want to welcome the opportunity to have this debate today. As you know, obviously, I met with you and your staff in your office a number of weeks ago, and we had a full and frank discussion on the draft public sector pay agreement. The trade union membership will have their say on this matter, and I fully respect the outcome, and I wish all of the trade unions well in their work over the course of the next number of weeks. You will know, Minister, that I presented you with a document a number of months back where my party set out what we saw as a framework for a new public sector agreement. What we got is an extension of the Lansdowne Road agreement. I think it's a bit longer than people expected. It's a 3-year extension, so essentially it is a new agreement, and there are many aspects of the agreement that I welcome. We wanted to have an agreement that prioritised low and middle income workers. We wanted a fair and timely unwinding of FEMPI. We want a situation where the vast majority of public servants, who had on average 14% taken from them over the course of the austerity years, that they would have most of their income returned to them. So there are elements of the agreement that I welcome, Minister, and I have publicly done that already. However, there are issues that were not dealt with, and one of the core issues that was in our discussion document and our framework document was the issue of equal pay for equal work. Unfortunately, your proposals and the agreement which is on the table is weak on this issue. So let me be crystal clear for you, Minister, that my party is very strong on this issue. It is a red line issue for Sinn Féin, and we are absolutely committed to returning our public service to a single-tier pay system, not only because it's the right thing to do, not only because it's about equality, but we also need to make sure that we recruit nurses into the system, doctors into the system, guards into the system, frontline workers into our public service. It's very important that that can happen, and it's very important that they feel that they are valued and they are not part of what is a two-tier pay system. It also doesn't make sense, Minister, that this issue wasn't dealt with in the course of the agreement. I know it was partially dealt with on the pension levy side. I know there is a vague reference to looking at this at some point in the future, kicking the can down the road, which I'm afraid won't do it for the vast majority of those public sector workers who were dependent on you and the trade unions to once and for all deal with this issue. But it was also the source of many of the industrial disputes that we had in this state over the last number of years. So it makes no sense whatsoever to have a 3-year extension of a pay agreement that fails to deal with the core sore that led to many of the industrial disputes and strikes in the first place. It's a sore, as we know, in Garda stations, it's a sore in hospitals, it's a sore in schools, and it's one of the reasons why many of the trade unions are not in a position to support this agreement and, in fact, have called for a no vote. And obviously we have to respect all of the individual unions' rights to take their own positions on this agreement, have their own ballots, and as I said, the membership of the trade union movement as a collective will make their decision known on this issue. The agreement makes provision to revisit, as I said, the issue of equal pay for equal work towards the end of 2018. But given the unfairness of this matter, it is deeply disappointing that it has not been put to bed for good. The agreement also kicks into touch the issue of retention, particularly within health and the defence forces, despite the fact that this was raised by the Public Sector Pay Commission that you commissioned, and in my view was one of the reasons why it was commissioned was to delay as much as possible the actual negotiations. But when it did produce a document, it did feature heavy the issue of retention, but yet it didn't feature all that much in the agreement itself. The agreement provides for talks on this issue towards the end of 2018. But as I said to you previously, Minister, in this chamber, retention is a critical issue in the here and now. It is one that cannot wait for another 18 months until it is addressed. Sinn Féin's priority in all of these issues are to protect workers on low to middle incomes. On the issue of equal pay, I spent many months asking for your department to cost what it would involve to restore our public service to a single-tier structure, and a number of weeks ago we got the reply it would cost €209 million. Minister, we hear from your party over and over again that the recovery is bedded in. We hear, and we heard the mantra from you before the last election, that we are in full recovery. But of course, when we point out all of these issues that need to be still dealt with, the mantra all of a sudden changes. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Is that my 10 minutes, or is that the...
50 out of 15.
Out of 15, there's only 4 left out of the 15. Sorry.
Okay, 4 minutes left.
I have 4 minutes left. Sorry,
Thank you.
Apologies for that. I think he was trying to knock my trail of thought there, Minister. What I do want to say, Minister, and I've said this to you on a number of occasions in the past, I don't believe that FEMPI can be unwound in one go. I don't believe it should be unwound in one go, not because I don't believe that those on low and middle incomes should get full pay restoration. Of course I do. But I'm certainly not going to support something where those who are the top income earners in the public sector get very significant pay restoration. So if FEMPI was to be unwound in one go, what would that mean for ordinary workers? It would mean €66 for somebody on €25,000, €577 for somebody on €30,000, €1,752 for somebody on €35,000, €53,000 for somebody on €185,000, and €35,000 for somebody on €150,000. So forgive me for not wanting to support the unwinding of FEMPI that will give the Secretary-General of your department a pay rise of €53,000. I don't think he would expect that. I don't think that you would propose that, and we certainly would not support it. So we are not in favour, Minister, of giving very large sums of money to people who are already on high incomes, very significant levels of pay restoration. We already had a situation where, under the Haddington Road Agreement, there was a separate registered agreement where those above 65,000 already benefit from significant pay restoration, and that's those between 65,000 and 110,000 euro a year, and we fall into that category. Minister, it's hugely important that the issue of public sector pay is dealt with. I do understand that we have a new agreement on the table. I have acknowledged that it is up to the trade union movement to adjudicate on that matter. We have to give them the independence, we have to give them the time and the space to be able to do all of that. You will understand, Minister, that we have, and it isn't something new to you, over and over again raised with you the issue of equal pay for equal work. We genuinely believe it was a mistake on your part not to have dealt with that issue. We will still appeal to you to deal with it in the upcoming budget. It is something that we will address in our alternative budget this year, Minister, and I would also appeal to you because on the last occasion where we did discuss public sector pay, you seemed to think that there was no issue with retention, and yet we were all able to give you examples in hospitals right across this state where they simply cannot keep wards open and they cannot keep services going because they cannot recruit nurses. I gave you an example in my own constituency in a community hospital in Dungarvan where beds were closed because they could not get the staff. And I know that the manager of the HSE in that area has written to all retired nurses and all of those who are working part-time, all of those who are on short-time, appealing to them to do extra hours or come back into the system so that they can open the ward again for patients who need it. And that's one example, and it's happening in hospitals across the state. So I do believe, Minister, with respect, that you have to take your head out of the sand when it comes to retention. It may not be an issue across the entire public service, but it is an issue in many areas, and I do believe it's one that needs to be dealt with. So I think our message, Minister, was made very clear to you. I want to thank you for agreeing to meet us, which coincidentally I think was the day after the agreement was signed. You will note the areas of disagreement where we disagree, and I hope you note the areas where we do agree and acknowledge that we have welcomed elements of the pay agreement which I think will be good for public sector workers, because anything that's given back to them and money put back into their pockets when you consider that they had so much taken from them unilaterally over the course of a number of years is obviously something to be welcomed. And the final point I'll make with the 20 seconds that I have is that I hope that the emergency legislation that is FEMPI, the emergency powers that the Minister has, is finally taken off the statute books, because I don't believe that we should be using these powers again. We should be negotiating with trade unions, not involving ourselves in unilateral action where a minister can simply come in and cut the pay of public servants.